So thanks very much everyone for joining us. So we're going to have this webinar, just live, LinkedIn Live webinar around AI and automation in debt collection. My name's Chris Warburton. I work for RO Strategy or rar.com, and I've been asked to sort of, join you guys, as opposed to host it and sort of have a conversation around some of this stuff, at least from my perspective. And today we've got Elamir Dushi, who's a senior customer success manager as part of VCC. And Elamir, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and what you kind of do is probably a good place to kind of
Yeah,
start.
yeah, thank you very much. Well, uh, yes, thanks for the correct pronunciation. So my name is Elamir Erdoshi, exactly, and during my everyday job, I keep contacts of my customer portfolio, and my main task is to roll out new projects, start new customers, and it's pretty exciting because every day is different. And then my main task, once someone goes live, then it's mainly about uh, implementing new tools, optimizing projects, and this is really connected to this webinar's main topic. So that's why I'm
Uh,
really interested by
and
that.
is it worth just talking very briefly around what VCC do and
Yeah.
just at a very, very high level, if we've got people who've joined and maybe who don't know,
Mhm.
is that worth just very briefly a couple of
Sure.
bullet points?
Thank you, Chris. So we are a cloud-based contact center provider. We started more than 20 years ago, and we offer all the channels that you can think about communication across the world. So we have customers across the globe, everywhere when it's needed, and we are super fast when it's about implementation. And also, we have great tools for outbound, inbound calls. We have great tools for ticketing, emails, chats, and social media platforms, and also about text messages and with AI features as well. So we offer a variety
Yeah.
of tools.
Yeah, so it's really at the heart of that whole sort of like
Yes.
contact channel infrastructure kind of integration within contact centers, really. I mean, it sounds, I mean, you're at the heart of that, which is what you get to see every day.
Yes, yes, and it's interesting to also see that it changed during the years. We are here for more than 20 years. It was mainly call center. Now it's contact center, and we
Yeah.
will see how it changes still. And just one more insight. So before VCC Live, I worked in outsourced contact centers in various projects, telesales collection, inbound customer service as a supervisor. So I have seen many things also before VCC Live.
So to move on, I suppose, to the discussion, because that's a good segue into the discussion. I mean, what we thought we'd do just to get the conversation going is put up a little data. So this is some data that I suppose that we've done in terms of myself. We've kind of done in terms of like looking at AI and contact center adoption. So there's a benchmarking study that I run every year. This is the data from 2024. There's a QR code there if people want to look at join for 2025. But the data here is really looking around contact channel adoption, and it compares the end of 23 to the end of 24. And I think what was interesting here is we talk a lot about, I suppose, new forms of communication, new forms of contact channels. There's a lot of discussion around AI, but always what comes up at the top is just the strength and the prevalence, I suppose, of telephony. And so telephony is still very dominant in a lot of places within collections. And so you see that within the stats here, which is the top sort of like 4 or 5 really, I suppose, are driven by telephony, some of the traditional channels like email, SMS, etc. And then we ask the question, I suppose, around what is the most effective channel, particularly for collections. So this is bespoke for collections. And here you start to see, again, telephony is right at the top. So it's still seen as being sort of like prevalent, as still being very effective. But this is where you start to see these other digital channels starting to sort of move up. So although a lot of people have telephony, and they use telephony a lot, it feels like there's this move towards probably digital rather than AI. I'd say digital forms of communication. And then we've right at the bottom here, we've got AI and LLM servicing that's just appeared in the last year. I mean, it's very, very kind of new. I mean, I suppose, Elimir, I suppose just getting your reaction to this kind of data. I mean, is this in terms of the levels of adoption that you've seen
Hmm.
when you're out there with clients?
Yeah.
Does this sort of ring true in terms of what you see when you're obviously out there in the field talking with real clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So among my customers, my clients in my portfolio, I can see a mix. So there are some early adopters who quickly try new technologies like, the digital channels like chat, messaging, self-service. Also, this is something that I implemented a lot this year. And there are other customers who are more cautious with this. So they prefer to stick to the traditional channels like
Mm.
phone until they feel that, yes, now we have seen some use cases, some examples, so now let's try it. We are ready for the change.
Yeah.
So that's
How
uh,
prevalent do you think telephony
mhm.
is? I mean, so is telephony still the majority of contact attempts, do you think? Or is that still
Mhm.
dominant, I suppose, in terms of like what you see?
Yeah, I can confirm this. So what I can see day by day, so telephone is still the main channel for the contact centers today. Customers, uh, I mean, my customers, they still prefer when they face a problem, they have an issue, then even they need an urgent help, then they just immediately want to call. At the same time, also digital channels are growing fast. So I can confirm that part as well because things like chat, messaging apps, like WhatsApp, Messenger, Telegram, even Instagram. So based on what the customers prefer, it's also growing fast. There is one thing that I always highlight that let's start digital channels, let's implement them, but still leave the room for those customers
Mhm.
who want to have a call because then you just if you just simply cut it, then they can have a frustration.
So
And
that's really
yeah,
so that's really around just making sure that you've got not just one channel, so it's not turn off telephony and go to digital only portals. You've got to have both to be able to have that sort of combination of service for customers.
yes, that's true. And let me give you one example about automation, for example, that happened with me because you also reflected to that. So automation, you can also think about like there are some cases that happen on daily work as a routine, and then always there's a business need that whether we can put something in it in this process that can help for example, the supervisors in their daily work. And one example, we have a customer who have a group of people who are campaign managers. What it means that they collect the data, the databases, they create segments from that, and then they import it to the proper project. This is sometimes Excel based. Sometimes generates much work to do, and then it can also mean whenever an import is happening to a database, it can mean like hours of work. And when, for example, this project went live, it helped to fully automate the data collection part because you can actually outsource it if you have a mass database. And also, whenever you create segments, you can also automate it. So automatically, there's a rule, a filter that works. And then also it automatically inserts customers to the proper project, to the proper campaign in your contact center tool. And that was a good story. It happened last year, and also they use it this year because this process that I mentioned that took hours, it's now 10, 15 minutes a day. And these supervisors, this group of people, they still work there, but then they can focus on different cases.
So you're saying, I mean, you're saying there that automation, we might think of automation as being digital servicing, I suppose, from a customer point of view, but there's also all the automation that happens in the background in
Yeah.
terms of, how do we use it to automate our processes internally that can make us more efficient?
Yes, and we can see it in results. So obviously, there's a real value in you can see it in the return of investment. So
Yeah. And going back to, I suppose, digital adoption, you talked about
Hmm.
the change between some people are sort of like fast adopters and they're starting to adopt digital kind of channels. What do you think drives that? So
Hmm.
is it driven by customer preference, which is one of the things
Hmm.
we'd always talk about, or is it driven by cost? I mean, because digital channels typically a lot cheaper, but I mean, and what's the right kind of balance should we think about? I mean, the other
Yeah.
one it could be driven by, I suppose, is fear of missing out or FOMO, which is everyone else is doing, so I want to do it, which may or may not be a good idea. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I would say both. So digital is also about costs, obviously, and better service. So when we think about rolling out a new channel, then obviously digital, there's a main area that is talking about that let's save money, because there is a chatbot, there is a self-service tool, there is messaging, and then these everyday routines, they become faster, cheaper, than over the phone. At the same time, we can also see that it obviously improve the customer experience, because for your customers you offer multiple channels. We can see that the customers and the users customers, they also change. So some of them prefer the digital channels, and actually that's where also AI comes in place, because when you have the mass data about your customers, then it can also help analyzing that, and then it will clearly show that which customers you should contact on which channel. And in part of that, it is already the digital. So obvious.
I mean, that was going to be the next question, which is where do you sort of see AI being used? What are some of the case studies that you're seeing, and particularly in the collections kind of world?
Hmm.
I mean, where I suppose is the best place to think
Yeah.
about using AI and the best place to kind of start? So you talked a bit about
Uh-huh.
segmentation there at the front
Mhm.
end, but you also talked a little bit about back office processing as well in a previous
Yes.
example.
Yeah. Well, AI can help there in several steps in the collection process. For example, if you think about early stages, uh, like early implementers as well, but now it's about really early stages. AI, how it can help is that it can really help you to show that which customers are most likely to pay. It can help in the prediction, and then you can change the customer segments that you call, and also you can define the channel. And AI can suggest the best way of the channel, how you should contact these customers, for example, email, text message, or call. So this is already one step. During the communication, chatbots and virtual agents, they can assist, or they can also help you to, for example, send reminders, or uh, just agree on simple payment arrangement. And later stages, AI can also support the next best action as a recommendation for the agents. What I have also seen that, for example, uh, currently what for example supervisors can have a value from is that uh, post-call analysis, and also uh, quality management, automatic scoring. It can also help them to support these activities, and especially during the conversation,
Mm.
an AI assistant instead of the supervisor, because you cannot just be there. If you have, for example, a bigger team like 50 agents, then it just real time can assist your agent. The key here is that to have an up-to-date knowledge base, because that's always the key. If you have documents that you rarely update, then it can go to a wrong direction. But if you have an up-to-date knowledge base, it can be, for example, an online document, or an FAQ that can be also updated to a website. Then this helps a lot.
And I suppose
And mhm,
there's so many different use cases that are out there. I mean, you talked
yes,
about four or five there.
yeah,
What do you think is what's the best way to hone in on which one to do first? Because we all have
uh,
investment lists, and they have to be done in a priority order because there's only so much money. I mean, no one has unlimited money,
yeah,
and it's like, well, where how
mhm,
should we best think about where to start? Because some of
yeah,
these can be quite different. I mean, an agent coaching tool is very different from a segmentation tool, as an example. I mean,
true,
how do we best think about
yeah.
it? What's
Well,
your view on that?
yeah, based on my experience, the best to start is with some kind of simple, low risk use case.
Mm,
Why? Because that's something that you can quickly roll out, you can quickly adopt, and then also it's a good feedback as a it's a success that you can celebrate together
yeah.
with your processes and then with the end user. So,
Yeah, yeah.
for example, it can be an automated email. Like, you have your knowledge base, you receive the questions, they are so repeated, then you just connect it to an automatic workflow that can answer these questions, and then you can see it real time that, wow, it works. And there will be questions that it cannot answer. No worries, because then you can automatically route it to the real agent. So you will see the benefits. And these small steps, low risk cases, then after that, you can go to the
Yeah,
more
so it's
complex.
about taking that incremental sort of like feedback loop to try and just, show the progress and then sort of expand from there.
Yes, yes. So it's a long project, but yeah, like this quick wins, it helps for everyone, for the customers and also for the team, because they can see the value immediately.
Yeah. So just on the screen now is obviously there's another QR code, which is a different QR code. So we've got Slido up. So if people want to ask questions, just scan the QR code in there, and then we'll come to the questions at the end. So please do that. And I think Elami, you've got access to some like a white paper, I suppose, around looking around debt collection solutions, I think as well. So um, I think we're going to there'll be a QR code for that in the second half of the webinar, I think.
Yes, exactly. So uh, as usual during our webinars, at the end, we always like to share something like now this three-pager document that just collects those ideas that you can implement, and that can be a first step. Just read it, and you can then reach out, and then we can discuss further steps.
Yeah. So hang on for that so I suppose to in a couple of slides time, and we'll get to it. And yeah, and I think that'd be pretty instructive, and some of the things I think we're discussing as well. Um, so I suppose this slide here we just put up because originally we were talking about the Baltic markets,
Mhm.
and some like so Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and some like and we just did this. I mean, using AI actually to really just compare. I mean, from my point of view, just the I suppose the differences between the different markets, because there are kind of subtle differences in terms of how collection works in the different markets and different regions across all of the
Mhm.
markets where you're basically present. A couple of things that kind of came out from here was obviously that region. I think the region really has sort of quite a focus, a historical focus on digital and fintech, and so it seems like it's quite advanced from that point of view. Although probably I'd say it feels like it's probably certainly in the public space and for larger firms, some of the smaller firms still feel like there's quite a bit of focus on telephony, and obviously there's investment challenges there. I mean, does this sort of gel with again with what you kind of see when
Mhm.
you look at different markets? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the flavors often slightly different, but fundamentally kind of the recipe's kind of the same. It's kind of like, we have some investments going in digital channels, but
Mhm.
there's still quite a bit to do, particularly around contact channels.
Yes, well, what I can see is that AI and even some automation steps, uh, mm, the adoption in the Baltics, still it's in the early stage. Obviously, there are differences. So there are some companies who do it faster. Like, for example, I can see that large companies and especially international players, when they are not just there, they first test AI tools, then they roll out a chatbot, reminders, speech analytics also, which is available. While I can also see smaller and organizations like traditional ones, and here where they often, due to the cost and some of the concerns, they are uncertain that what will be the return of the investment at the end. So right now, I always suggest to them as well that let's start with simple automation, with some routine task, repetitive task, and then we can go to advanced AI tools like analytics and agents assistance as well. So in really short, I can see that this is important
Mm.
in the market, but it's really in the early stage if I compare it to other markets where I have customers across the globe.
So if I just replay that back, it's almost like
Hmm.
so large companies where they've got economies of scale have been able
Yeah.
to sort of invest in some of it. For the smaller companies, I suppose it sounds like there's a bit of a fear around this is going to cost a lot of money, and so it's really
Yeah.
around how do you use that. And I suppose we can talk a little bit about whether some of this automation really does cost the money, or you can get it, I suppose, through through services or software that's already available. Because some of this functionality is
Yeah.
actually built in to some of the existing functionality they may or may not
Hmm.
have.
Yeah. And just again, an example among my customers. What a really a quick win can be that I already mentioned that you can set up workflows in, for example, answering emails,
Mm,
and that's already a kind of proven record in my customer portfolio. So if you can show some quick wins and the setup is quite simple and doesn't even cost much because it's just a simple workflow that's not a big model behind, then that can help a lot. And it happened a lot in my portfolio that this starting point then generated further needs, and then we can turn to more complex solutions.
how often do you find that
Mhm.
clients are really using
Yeah.
all of the capability and the functionality within the software platform? I mean, or within
Uh-huh.
the telephony platform? I mean, is there often I mean, some of my experiences, you tend to sort of like, I mean, particularly if you're in operations, I mean, you've got stuff going on every day, all day, every day, and you're just trying to get through the day because you've got to work
Mhm.
you've got to work the accounts, you've got to take the calls. It's busy, right? I mean, it really is busy, and it
Mhm.
can be hard to take yourself out to say, well, actually, there's this extra functionality that actually exists. I need to use and I need to use it, right? So, do you
Mhm.
see that in terms of like a lot of this extra functionality is actually there, but it's not being used?
Yes, I can see that. That's actually one of my tasks to find those features that, for example, can be tailor made to that customer that works, for example, in the collection segments. Uh, there are things that are again can work like automating tasks. It's already there, but you
Mm,
don't use it yet. Let me just give you an example. For example, there's a collection project. We have sorted this 0 to 30, 31 to 60 days, DPDs. And then obviously as time goes, then if you cannot close that case, then these uh, customers in this segment, they move to the next one. And sometimes it's like, you close the database manually, then you import it again, and then we come as customer success managers that, hey, we have an automation for that. Automatically when it's the 31st day, then the customer automatically moves to the next project. You don't even have to close it. We do it instead
mm,
of you. And that's again a win. So obviously if you too can support that, but I mentioned this campaign manager, that's also a great tool, and also workflows in the system, they fully support this. And then you don't have to worry that, oh, I will call someone who is in a different DPD segment. You will call them at the right time
mm.
and use the proper channel as well, because that can be already set. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we've got three markets here. I mean, how does this compare versus other markets which you
Uh-huh.
operate in? I mean, are there some markets you think, well,
Mm.
this market here seems further ahead. This market, I mean, these markets
Uh-huh.
here are maybe further ahead in other places. I mean, how would you sort of do that compare and contrast? And where
Mhm.
would we look at to find what you think is being done really well? I mean, what's a good place to kind of look or to concentrate on?
Yeah. Well, what I can see is that, for example, in Poland, Germany, Romania, and also Hungary, what currently I can see that it's a bit more advanced. I mean, when we talk about the adoption level. So
Mm.
here again, we have larger enterprises, they are using AI. Uh, there are already projects for speech analytics, sentiment analysis, transcripts, call summaries, and then notifications that you can receive if, for example, there was a keyword that you really focus on. And also, when we talk about multiple channels, then I can see more and more through omnichannel experience. What I mean here is, that there are channels next to each other, and when there are channels, when from, for example, an agent point of view, they just come together and you see the whole picture of a customer, then it's much better. And what I can see that in these countries, it's already work more advanced. For example, if I think about, I know I jump a bit maybe high, but South America, and then also I check that customers that we have in Africa. Um, it varies a lot. I mean, it changes across the customers, but also there I can see fast-moving AI adoption. For example, in South America, I can see that chat, like WhatsApp, that they use more, and then if they can automate those questions and answers in those channels, then it's obviously a need, and it's even stronger than the phone channels. So even the adoption level is different. So what I can see in Baltics, that it's maybe a bit more cautious, if I can say. Many customers, they are already there to try basic AI tools and automation, but still there are room to move further.
And is the level of adoption, obviously,
Hmm.
because you kind of compare with firms you know in your market, that's usually
Yep.
what your comparison is. And if someone else has got that, you
Mm.
think, well, maybe I should look at that. If we just look at
Uh,
the bigger picture, I mean, should we be looking at other markets to say, well, look, the software's kind of
Yes.
the same. I can
Hmm.
do that. I can learn and sort of accelerate my own progress by looking at what's going on in Africa or what's going on in Hungary or Poland,
Yeah.
etc.
Yes, you need to. I mean, you can learn from that. So, for example, you can learn that how you can speed up the progress at home in your own country. For
Mm.
example, start with something small, as I mentioned, quick wins, and then you can scale fast. So that I have seen in Poland and Germany this year, or also focus on the customer choice, so that which channels they prefer. It's really important. And then also well, you need to invest in the integration. That's not the question. So where we have seen successful rollouts and successful players, it meant that and these customers, they can connect their channels, um, so that it works efficiently. And then obviously there is a balance between the cost and the service, so that you can cut costs. It will be visible, but also you have to analyze this, so the return of investment. But in really short, pick something simple, have a quick win, and then go further. So prove this value quickly, and then and keep it in your every day. So keep the momentum, and then it can work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fantastic. I mean, it sort of like segues into I suppose the last slide here, which is around that adoption. What are people seeing in terms of like I suppose hesitancy in terms of adoption?
Uh,
This was a bit of fun here. Just on the left here, which is, you know, I mean, you've talked already a little bit about some of the new capabilities that you guys have got around Campaign Manager and those kind of things. But how often do you see, for example, these are all the different logos from Excel? And I don't know how many you remember on the right side, because a lot of times that I go into operations, I mean, Excel is still prevalent and it's a wonderful tool. I do think it's a wonderful tool, but it feels like our evolution seems to be driven by the telephone and sort of evolutions in functionality in Excel sometimes. And we've got this new sort of like suite of different channels that are available, new ways of
mhm,
thinking, new ways of analyzing
mhm.
data. But we've been sort of like sticking with that Excel evolution, I suppose, to a certain
Yeah.
extent. So it was a bit of kind of fun. Um, I think I go back through all of them apart from the first one. I'm that old. So, but I mean, and then a little bit on the right is just again from the survey, was around what are some of the challenges people face, I suppose,
Yeah.
around adopting some of this new technology. I mean,
Yes.
you guys are at the heart of sort of building and distributing this technology, but why do people struggle to put it in? I mean, what are the main challenges? And right at the top, people are saying, integration's an issue, budget's an issue,
Yeah.
data privacy is kind of an issue, but it's really around, I suppose, that integration of budgetary piece is the real
Mhm.
sort of hesitancy people have around putting some of the new technology in. I mean, does that gel with what or make sense with what you see with customers?
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, what uh, I can see is that what can be, for example, a barrier is can be cost and budget limits. So
Mm,
it's on the table. Smaller companies, they often worry whether it will work, it won't work, what will be the investment, and then what will be the ongoing cost, and where's the value. So obviously, that's why this quick win is really important to show the value and then further automate the processes. Sometimes it's always important, but you also mentioned the integration issue. So you need to also think about connecting this value to your own system, to your CRM, and it's good when there's another tool, a contact center tool that has open AI, so that you can easily open API. I'm sorry, so you can easily connect these two tools together. That's also really important. And what we can see, that the change resistance. So that when there is something new, then you have to adopt it, you have to use it. Maybe you have a fear, you don't trust it. So there's also something that happens. And but you can help a lot with proper training. So you show the tool, and then you show how it works, and then it can be easily a wow feeling. Let me just tell you one example is, yeah, Excel is also something that I worked a lot. And I was thinking that, which was the year when I stopped using Excel. And actually, I think it was last year, because I found more proper tools to analyze data. But for example, there are still it's not something we want to hide. So there are still contact centers who use Excel even for storing data when answers come from the customers. And I have a story about this. We implemented contact center, and the supervisor was always the last one who left the office. Why? Because he still had to collect, the Excel sheets and put together in a big one, in a big file. And then once we implemented a contact center solution for them, then he went home together with the agents at the same time. And then there was a receptionist who said that, oh, you go home and something changed. And then, yeah, I'm finished. So I have done what I had to. And this is already something that proves, and then easily you can adopt this change when you implement a new technology.
And we were chatting there, I suppose, a little bit about fear, weren't we? I suppose fear adoption, I suppose legacies. I mean, and I know you talked about breaking into smaller pieces. I mean,
Hmm.
how do you sort of, I mean, there's a fear that something's going to go wrong, I suppose,
Hmm.
when you put in new technology, particularly so you're
Yes.
spending a lot of money, but you've got through those budgets, I suppose, reviews to make sure you can get the investment.
Hmm.
How do we make sure that, I suppose, that the fear around it breaking and making sure it's being done safely in a low cost kind of manner. I mean, what's the best kind of approach from adoption of this to new tech kind of technology? I mean, how's the best way to sort of approach it, do you
Uh-huh.
think?
Well, so if you want to do it safe, so that you when you implement something, then you're sure that the adoption will be successful. Then always what I do is I pick low risk use cases, and then implement it, collect the FAQ. Like, for example, connect it to a simple chatbot, or to a workflow email. And what I do and what works for me and ensures these customers is that you immediately show this uh, wins, and also you analyze the data, and together you summarize it as a project. So that's something is the key, that maybe you can still use the existing things. I mean, not go so fast, but also what is the key that during this implementation, measure the results, compare it to the previous one, see the return of the investment, and that helps a lot. If you don't do this, then you may have feelings. But what worked me as well during the years, that whenever there's a decision, there should be data. And if you have the data and you make your decision based on that, then you don't have to fear.
How do you manage it, particularly for in the AI world? So we've all got very
Hmm.
excited around AI. You've mentioned some use cases already
Yeah.
around, you know,
Hmm.
you know, quality monitoring, agent notes, all
Yes.
of those kind of things. But how do you manage, I suppose, the excitement that people have around wanting to do everything now? And I want to have
Uh-huh.
everything now, and I'm very excited about it, versus the reality around you probably want to go a little bit, you might need to go a little bit slower to build it up and
Yeah.
make sure it's kind of safe. I mean, how do you sort of balance that? Because, a
Hmm.
lot of people are doing a lot, say they're doing a lot of things in these very big projects, but very big
Uh-huh.
projects often don't actually get to the end because they're almost like too big. I mean, how do we
Hmm.
balance that? And how do you recommend, I suppose, balancing that, particularly internally?
Hmm.
Because if you're an operations manager, you want to make sure that you're getting something that's
Yeah.
actually going to work and is actually going to make a difference for people.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, it's mainly about project management as well. So when there's a big project, then you have to make it to different parts. I mean, there is the first part, the initial part, when you implement the first quick wins, and then you see a next part that comes after that. The key is always that keep the contact with the end user during this process, and also what helps me is every stage before you step to the next one, have a meeting, have a discussion, have a summary, and see the values and prove that what worked and what not. And then you can also optimize it and then go to the next step. So what for me works in such projects which are really big, I can confirm that you even make segments from that. So
yeah.
now we do this, we reach that level, and then we can go to the next one. It can go fast. Sometimes it goes slower. So obviously, from an operational point of view, then you have to speed this up. But this is what helped me a lot. I always keep the human beings in the loop, so that I don't automate without having a discussion and showing the results. That is
So,
something
so,
that helps.
so it sounds like in the absence of any information,
Mhm.
everyone wants to go very fast, but as soon as
Yeah.
you start presenting the results and
Yes.
people can see there's progress, and that sort of calms things down a little bit from a project management point of view.
Yes, also when we talk about knowledge base, it's even sometimes can be a showstopper for a certain period of time, because this is this is one of the most important thing to have a good knowledge base, and then everybody raises their hands that yes, we have a knowledge base. Obviously, it's good because the agents use it. And but what do you do when there is a change? Do you update it quickly? And in a conference, I asked that question, and then uh, much lower people
Mm.
just raise their hands after that, and that's something that is can be a showstopper if you want to really automate things and do it efficient. But those ones who raise their hands and keep that up to date, the knowledge bases, then they were the first implementers, and they were uh,
Right, right.
these are the ones who you can then follow.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, and there's a little bit of that. You've got to do that pre-work to and the data work to make sure that you've got a good basis and those kind of things. Is getting the some of the basics right to a certain extent. Um, I put on the just on the slides here. Just I suppose we've got Slido in the background, so if people want to ask questions, then they're there. I'm just going to switch over to actually look because we do have some questions. I'm going to just move
Oh,
over. One second. I'm just going to come off here while we're doing that. Um, where are we? We're here. And hopefully you can see that. So a couple of questions that came through. First one was,
mhm.
I suppose it's around resistance of customers from using AI. I mean, you do sort of see that, particularly around particularly in the contact center, where everything has to involve a call, or we're sort of, we're sort of resistant around AI or hallucination,
Yeah.
those kind of things. I mean, what do you think sort of stops people utilizing the tools more? I mean, and do you see that kind of
Mhm.
resistance?
Yeah, I have seen. I can also see it on the agents because
Yeah.
then I have seen the fear as well that, oh, so this is something that well removes some part of my job, or actually just I will be replaced because I'm not needed anymore. But what I can see after the implementations that the main focus is about, and what they can also see, agents and supervisors, is that they are supported, they have assistance,
Mm,
they can turn to someone who helps them. So it just creates better and better conversations, better and better communications. So the agent's performance is actually better. Let me just give you an example. For example, if you have calls, let's just stick to calls, they are transcripted. Good thing. Well, you can have a summary of that. Really good. You can automate the quality management part. That also helps. That already shortens the training part later on because you can have some suggestions automatically. But if you can use a tool that can real time give you assistance, then that's the
mm,
difference because maybe you made a mistake during a call. It happens. But then you can already correct it during the same conversation, or
mm,
maybe you just hang up, then you just call the customer back and then you can correct it. That's already better. And if you think about training, it also reforms the training part because if you correct it at that time or short after, then you can learn it as well. So you don't have to, go to a training session after 1 month of the project and summarize what mistakes happened. Immediately you will learn it based on the suggestions that what you need to do a bit differently. And that proves for the agents, that proves the things for the supervisors. So what I can see that this resistance, it's less and less when we start the real work.
Yeah, so it seems like it's I mean, I suppose it's change management. I'd call it change management, which is just making sure you understand and sort of there are misconceptions, I suppose, around what AI is and what it can kind of do. And it's doing the
Yeah.
change management to make people understand what's the value in it for them. And it's actually
Hmm.
improving their roles rather than necessarily being a threat and sort of you get into that sort of fear resistance kind of approach.
Yeah. Too.
So another question is, well, how much time does it take for agents to fully adapt to AI features, in your
Hmm.
experience?
Yeah, it's something like compared to a new tool that they use. So based on my experience that I have seen during this implementation is like 2 to 3 weeks time when they first try it, they test it. There are immediately good feedback, and already they can work more efficient. On the other hand, they still have to learn it and put it in their
Mm,
everyday workflow. So that's why, even though it's immediately something that helps, but it takes a bit more time to 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 get better by this tool. So based on my experience, it's like when you roll out a new system, it's something like similar to 2 to 3 weeks based on my experience. The main thing is never stop after implementing. I mean, I'm sorry, just sometimes stop for a moment and collect the feedback and then react on that because that's also a key. It's something like the project management. So when you
yeah.
organize such feedback
I mean, I'd imagine
meetings.
it kind of depends, doesn't it? It depends on what's being changed and versus how much of a change it is. And I suppose back to your point around
Mhm.
how do you start small and build from that so people can see the value, then that sort of helps that adoption cycle too. I would think. I would think. Um, so next question then was any tips for smaller debt collections firms who wanted to use AI? Where's the best kind of place to start? I think we may have
Uh-huh.
answered that already, but I mean,
Yeah,
any other comments?
well, really about the low risk cases, and it can be obviously different. So from my point of view, something that is a low risk case is like automated email communication. But then you will see that even answering based on a knowledge base some emails, it's already something that you can start with. I can see more and more not only chatbots, but also some kind of bot that the agent can turn to. That's also something that I always recommend to use, because then the agents will see also that this is something I can turn to and put it in your everyday practice. So I suggest internal chatbots as well. If you don't want to go
Mm.
live with your chatbots first, then prove it within your team that it
Oh, that's
works,
a good idea.
and then it
Yeah,
helps a lot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. So you can do, and again, that proves the value of AI actually helping rather than necessarily being people being fearful of it, because it's actually helping you with your job, right?
Yes, because what your agents do these so today, so they turn to a supervisor when they have a question, but you have limited supervisors. So they need these agents during a conversation, for example, they need immediate answers, and that's what I highlighted. So it's something like a supervisor AI that can help, and you
Mm.
can also do it in smaller steps. Have a chatbot first. Later on, you can implement agent assistance real time that analyzes the calls real time. That's maybe a next step, but start with something simple, and then it will help the implementation.
Uh, Here's an interesting question. How do you balance or choose between scripted and large language models or local language models in deployment? So that's kind of an interesting question in terms of like, I don't know if you got a view on that.
Mhm.
Um, any thoughts or?
Um, well, that's a good question. I would actually maybe keep it for another discussion, because it can well open some other doors. What I have seen, that whenever you use your model, maybe first start with something scripted that you are pretty sure. So it's just the first step. You just add the knowledge base, and you still don't use bigger models, because that's something where you will prove. So at the first, when if we can focus on implementation, I would go first with the scripted ones, and then switch. So I my suggestion is always to balance
Yeah.
between
I mean,
these with this way. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and certainly what I've seen, I was there's a couple of questions there. One is around is transparency of decision making, and the other one I suppose is around things like data privacy between the two and consistency as well. So
Mm,
scripted is scripted gives you transparency around decision making. It's a very known sort of like technology. It's sort of like something that can really help, and so that's fairly low risk and safe to kind of put in. Large language models have just sort of swept the world, haven't they, in terms of like being able to answer more complex questions. I mean, I go back to the days of fuzzy logic, which seemed like the biggest thing at the time. But large language models sort of like I just will take that even further. I think the
mhm,
question there is knowing where your data is going. So if you're going off to a central model, making sure you know around the security around that, and that's where people, as I've seen, people are using like local language models,
mhm,
local LLMs, really around consistency, and if the model kind of changes as well, because one of the issues that will happen with centralized large language models is just control over the model itself, and if you're going to get different answers or those kind of things. So it's quite an interesting question that in terms of like the balance there. I think going back to your point, reflecting on what
mhm,
you said, is make sure you're sort of starting off in someone that's straightforward that can add value and you can show it adds value because there's still a lot to do, and then building on that and building into these other kind of areas, maybe doing some of this internally where there's lower risk rather than doing it sort of externally customer facing. I think that's kind of the advice I'm picking up from what you said.
yeah,
And I think
exactly.
especially the last question, which was, you know, what AI or automation features
Mhm.
do you think could help most with retention? Any thoughts on that, Elemy?
Yeah, well, actually, one thing I want to repeat a bit is really about the changes in the customer segments. If we focus about DPDs, this is this is one of the first thing I always implement, because this can immediately give you the feeling of how the automation works. So whenever your data goes from one campaign to the other automatically, instead of doing it with manual work, that's something that I love uh, in this project. And also using a campaign manager, it can save enormous time in your projects, and especially in this segment, you use different customer uh, segments. So that's why this is something I recommend using. Regarding AI, well, if you have the knowledge base, then first I suggest using it on digital channels, and also if we think about knowledge base, then I also suggest to, as it's mainly still the communication channel, to use those ones that are available for the call channel.
Mm,
Okay, so use the transcripts, uh, work together with the core summaries. It can also contain other parts like emails and chat. So for your agents, if you have the tool to have a summary of a customer, that already helps a lot, because if there's a customer, it has many communications with you. I mean, you can see tons of calls, transcripts. Okay, you can see emails, you can see chats, but to summarize it, and if you think about that, that an agent has to call this customer, then you need a tool that summarizes the
mm,
most important info, and then show that which communication channel is the most effective, because you can figure it out, obviously. uh, you can analyze data, but you need to use a tool that analyzes this data instead of you. So maybe that would be one of the other that
good place to
I would
start. Yeah.
recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much to think about, and I know yeah, again, it's that question around where to start. So I like this idea of sort of breaking into smaller chunks and
Mm,
showing the value. I think that's fascinating. So we're almost at time, and I suppose the last question I kind of had, which was, I mean, we talked a lot about a lot of ideas, but where do you
yeah.
think the industry is going to be in sort of like 5 to 10 years time? I mean, what's your sort of like get your crystal ball out, in terms of like prediction? I mean, where do you think we could be? And if you look back 5 years, who would know that we'll be talking about what we're talking about today 5 years ago? But I like, so if we can, where do you think we'll be in another 5 years? I mean, what could happen?
Okay. So, well, from my point of view, in 5, 10 years, more digital. So less voice, but for the routine tasks, so
Mm,
that you have sometimes simple cases, then it can be handled by AI for sure. Voice will be still there. So I'm really sure that it will be there still for complex cases where there are emotions. When you handle it, when human contact, as we feel, is still important. What I can also see that agents and supervisors, so their managers, they will work side by side with AI. It will be a normal daily routine that they use this task. So this will, from my point of view, will happen, so that they will have suggestions how to update your database, how to update your knowledge base. You They can enjoy then the real time coaching. So
mm,
this will, from my point of view, definitely happen. What we are still talking about, the true omni-channel uh, uh, feeling, so that the channels are not just there side by side. It will be an absolute minimum, so that tools, they just need to support it, so that all channels are connected. It will be super uh, crystal clear a demand, and it will be there in the tools. And well, finishing smarter use of data thanks to the AI. So using the mass data will be fully automated, and generate more success. So that's what I believe
yeah.
will change in the upcoming years.
I mean, for me, it feels like we're going to move to a much more sort of like personalized type approach. And, using a personalized approach is either expensive because you do it individually back to the way it used to be, or you can do it using technology, and it's very complicated to do it from a technology point of view. But I think it feels like, you know, mix of contact channels, mix of channel preferences, mix of communications, all of that is very complex to manage on a mass scale, but using things like AI and automation, it's going to kind of help. So we're sort of going to go bit to it, bit by bit, but it means that we can sort of manage that much more sort of like tailored communication, tailored kind of workflow, tailored kind of interaction, with customers, and tools to help us to do that. just as a result of this kind of technology. It kind of feels that's the direction we're going. Maybe we're not going quite as fast as we want to in our mind. I mean, it's not quite sci-fi. We just need to do it step by step, but it'll sort of evolve over the next sort of 5, 10
Yes.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good summary.
So, well, Elamir, I think we're out of time now. So, um, just to say, I suppose, thank you from my point of view. Thank you to everyone who kind of attended, I suppose, just in terms of like, this decency live sort of discussion on LinkedIn. So I hope people enjoyed it, found it useful. I mean, Elamir, is there anything you want to say just to sign us off?
Well, after the session, I go back to implementation. So this is something that I suggest. So let's keep contact, let's have conversations, let's implement things together. So this is what actually helps every day. And this is what I'm excited about after such webinars.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. Don't forget to download the white paper as well. So you can either get that here or on the website by going back through the slides. So that's it. I think we're going to sign off and say thanks very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.